Mic check 1 2 1 2. Are y'all good? I think so. Finals week is officially here at MSU, and I've come to a realization that I don't mind how I do in most of my classes on their finals because I've already been doing pretty well in them across the semester, except for my calculus class. So I really need to lock in and do well on that final. And what I'm going to be doing is studying for that final all of Sunday, all of Monday, in the hopes that I do well on it, right? And, you know, it's unfortunate that it has gotten to the point where I feel like I can just punt the rest of them, but it is what it is. The other finals are probably going to be easier, but that doesn't make me feel much better about it. And that's kind of brought me to where I am here today, talking, rambling, yapping about failure, burning out, and needing to take a break. I distinctly remember in 9th grade, I was sitting in my history class. I believe it was my last class of the day. We had 5 periods. I believe at least. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, 5th period. And I was sitting there, and we had a warm-up question that was, what's your biggest fear? Stay hydrated. And I distinctly remember a lot of the smarter kids in my class talking about their fear of failure. I did not say that. Me being the, I guess, romantic little 9th grader said that my biggest fear was being alone. And I still think to some extent that still holds true. But I've come around a lot more to that fear of failure. Recently, my dad came up to visit me. He was doing something in Lansing and wanted to, hang out, get some food with me and, hear how things are going. And I remember over winter break when I had gone home, I was talking to him about this potential job that I wanted to try out, that I might have wanted to, do, working with the Parks Department in my home city. I already had a friend that worked there, and I knew the person that had gotten him the job. We were all, acquaintances and knew of each other pretty well. So I was hoping to get a job lined up, through that same connection. And, my father being my father, he was like, that sounds like a great idea. I'm excited for you about that. That sounds like a good opportunity. And when he came up, he asked me about how that hiring process was going. And I kind of had to bullshit my way out of it, bullshit my way out of, having to basically say that I just didn't apply. Even, he knows I didn't apply and that I didn't actually end up doing that, but I kind of had to make up an excuse if I'm being honest. And he seemed disappointed in me, and that was what hurt, I would say. This is no shade to my father. I love him dearly, but that disappointment stung, if I'm being honest, right? And I think it's reasonable of him to feel that way. But, I don't think that's something any kid wants to feel that their parent is showing them, right? And that fear of disappointing people is really tied to that fear of failure in my mind. Moving to a much lighter note, I have started to play a lot more Geometry Dash. I've gotten very invested in that game because of some of my friends. They're all much better than I am. But yesterday, that would have been Friday, April 20 something or other. I beat my first demon, deadlocked. I felt really, really good about that. I was at a Discord call with one of my friends who plays Geometry Dash. It was like 11 p.m. and he had to like get up and go. I was at like 30%, and he came back right as I beat it, and I was sitting there going, yes, 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 going crazy. And he was like, what the fuck? I came back and you're over here sounding like a caveman with the way you play Geometry Dash. Ooga booga booga. That is a reference to the Baby Keem song, Circus Circus Freestyle. Because me and this other person had listened to Baby Keem's new Casino album the night it came out. But that is all besides the point, right? Deadlock didn't take me that long. I got really, really motivated into it over the last week and put 843 attempts into it in the actual level, and then 2,500 and some into the start positions. Just grinding out different parts of the level. Which is not an unreasonable attempt count, especially since a good, 400 of those main level attempts were practice mode. And, a lot of those start position attempts were just me getting used to the level. But I've realized that since I beat it, literally yesterday, that motivation is still there. I still feel very, very motivated to continue, pushing myself to a different level, get through that. But I don't really have an idea of where to go. I don't have direction. I was talking to my other friend one of my other friends that really plays Geometry Dash, and they specifically suggested, you just need a break. Like that level of, I don't want to say dedication. They didn't say all this, but I put a lot of time into that level through the course of a week. And, going that hard into something over that short of a period of time is always going to be a huge stress factor on your mental health. And if you continue trying to do that to something you're not as motivated about, that can really burn you out. I downloaded Geometry Dash either earlier this year or just before the end of 2025. I believe it would have been January or February 2026, because I distinctly remember playing it over Valentine's Day. And I beat most of the main levels relatively quickly. And then I got stuck with only a few left that I hadn't beaten. I can distinctly remember which ones they were. It was the 3 demons, Deadlocked, or no, not Deadlocked, Finger Dash, Hexagon Force, Clutterfunk, Electrodynamics, Geometrical Dominator, and Blast Processing. And the one I wanted to put the most attempts into was Electrodynamics, because I thought that level was kind of cool and an enjoyable level to play. No. I burned myself out on that level really, really quickly. Once I got through, all the other insane levels that I didn't earlier mention, Theory of Everything, Electroman Adventures, and X-Step, poopy level, and Dash. I love Dash. Once I got through all those levels, it was only down to a few, and I was like, well, I want to play Electrodynamics the most out of all these. I'm going to try and grind it out. I burned myself out on that level pretty quickly, which led me to not playing Geometry Dash for a really, really long time. Or not putting serious effort into the game for a really, really long time. It took me probably a month and a half to get back into it. And when I did, it felt really, really nice to like feel refreshed about a game like that, right? It's almost like that 2 week Minecraft phase over again, right? Where you just get so motivated and so locked into something that you just have to put attempts into it. You have to push into it. You know, fuck the rest of my mental health. This is really motivating me, and I feel very, very fixated on it. I don't want to say hyper-fixated because that's jargon at this point. But it was damaging. I will say that much. Pushing myself that hard into something that I did want to do, but it wasn't something that I could do feasibly, right? That definitely hurt, and it shows in my attempt count. If I'm going to be honest, I said it took me 843 attempts. Probably 400 of those were actual, main level attempts into the level, not in like practice mode or anything else, to beat Deadlocked. Electrodynamics took me about 1,083. Actually, specifically 1,083 attempts, and I think took like 200 in practice mode. Like, it was not an enjoyable experience for me. I formed multiple different mental blocks across that entire level, and like I've gotten a lot more invested into the Geometry Dash community recently because I've been so locked in on Deadlocked. No pun intended. But like, I hear people talk about Doggy and Zoink and all these other really, really good players, especially Doggy. He has been verifying grief for almost 2 years now, and like the amount of mental strength that must take is despicable, right? Like, I watched his March update video. Yeah, that was the last one that came out. We're still technically in April. And it just seemed like he was unhappy and tired. Like, I don't mean to project anything or assume anything, but he does state that like he needs breaks in between, playing the game, and now like he's doing attempts like every other day, partially for hand pains, but also to avoid that burnt out feeling. And I hear other people talk about it, and it's like he's forming mental blocks at different parts of the level as he gets through it, and it's like, I felt that, right? It's not anywhere near similar in terms of like difficulty or any of that, but I understand that feeling of just starting to fail at something that you were previously good at and moving through different sections just to be good at one part and then suddenly be bad at it, or be bad at one part and suddenly be good at it. The inverse is always a lot nicer than the former, I will say that much. But it's weird. I don't know. My biggest piece of advice I would say would be to give yourself time. Do not stress yourself out. And don't burn yourself out trying to do something that you love. Take breaks. It's important for keeping your motivation and keeping yourself happy. Another game that I really, really got into recently was Hypixel Skyblock. There's a lot of crossover between Skyblock and GD. And it's interesting because they're both kind of similar in my mind. GD requires a lot more actual brain focused on actually playing the game, but they're both incredibly grindy. They take a lot of time, and the feeling of getting through something is not always pure joy. More often than not, it is relief. Going back to Geometry Dash, my friend who I was talking to about, this feeling of motivation but not having a direction, just recently beat 9 circles. That's like their hardest by quite a bit. I think their previous was deadlocked. And I was in the Discord call with them when they beat it. And like they had been putting consistent effort into it for, it felt like a month probably, if not longer. And it was just like it wasn't even like that scream like yes finally or whatever. It was like it was an exhale. It felt like a sigh of relief almost that I heard. I don't really distinctly remember what it sounded like, but it wasn't anything crazy. It was really, really interesting. And I want to say this. If you are burnt out, or if you are feeling a mental block with something that you're doing, taking a break is a good idea. And especially if you're taking a break into something that requires like technical skill. I'm relating this to Geometry Dash, but apply it as you may. Just putting a little bit of effort in each day, like even if you're mentally blocked or even if you're burnt out, like 30 minutes of practice, 30 minutes of effort is always good to retain, the muscle memory or the mental sharpness that you need, right? That was something that my friend had told me, was like before I beat deadlocked, was like, eventually you might just not feel motivated or feel burnt out. And at that point, it's important to take a break, but continue to put a little bit of effort in each day, 30 minutes, just keeping that muscle memory sharp. And I think that's also incredibly valuable. That's another piece of advice I would seriously give, would be take breaks, try and stay motivated, and be smart about your breaks. Keep your mental sharp, and just because you're motivated doesn't mean you need to push yourself really, really hard. Like, you can be motivated and direct that energy through a funnel, right? Being motivated sometimes just feels like using a hose. And I'm saying you should use one of those hose adapters that has that has the twisty bit on the end so that you can change the modes so you can water the plants more effectively, right? Like use the jet stream one so you can get it more accurate, or use the fan to spray them all at once. Apply yourself in a more technical manner. Don't just try and fucking spray water in this metaphor. Don't just try and spray your motivation into whatever you're doing. I don't know. I don't have much else to say. Obviously academics is another area where a lot of people get burnt out. So I would apply the similar logic there if necessary. I'm probably going to need to apply that to myself, but I don't really have that kind of time, which is really unfortunate. So I need to take my own advice next year and be more intelligent with how I apply myself, right? But anyways, thank you for listening to me blabber on about whatever for another 15, 20, 30 minutes. New video the next time I feel like it.